And welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo. Got another great show in store for you. Our guest, Johnathan Morpurgo, who is a member of ACTUP, AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, and he's here to talk about his scarves and his petition and the work he's doing to memorialize our great friend and former guest on this show, Gilbert Baker, who just passed away recently. Passed away. It's such a... we did a show on death here a few weeks ago and talked about how Americans had such a fetish about death. We always have to say things like passed away or crossed over to the other side or is with the ancestors.
It's part of the overall American obsession with positivity.
Oh yeah, you can never say negative.
You can't get fired unless it's shocking. You're let go or you had a career transition.
Right.
Yeah.
It's got to be a major thing, right? Or else it's nothing, right? It's an interesting part of American history. We can get into that as part of our conversation. Johnathan. Now, Johnathan is here to talk about a number of things. Let's begin by finding out some stuff about you. You work for ACTUP. What an amazing organization. 30 years young. I was at the ACTUP 30-year party a few weeks ago. It was still cold out, I remember, and it was great to see all the survivors, people who've been surviving with HIV, with AIDS for many, many, many years because of the new development in the drugs and the new treatments and a new attitude towards AIDS that have developed over the years that have led to the beginnings, the glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel that maybe one day it'll be brought under control, if not cured. At the same time, it wasn't like that at the begining, was it, Johnathan?
I guess so. I wasn't there for the beginning. I wasn't even there for the 30-year party.
Right? Yeah.
I do know the history. I was so I know you from activism around harm reduction, around drug policy, but that's the nexus of pretty much all that activism is ACTUP.
Right.
What do we have? I mean, what do we have to say about ACTUP at this point? They haven't endorsed my petition to co-name streets in the West Village, but I'm getting more nonprofits on board. They don't want to be one of the early ones, but I had a conversation earlier today with a chief of staff of a city council person, which made me add our friend Gilbert to the petition. Right.
So you have influence with ACTUP that you might be able to get them to support, because when they support something, they really support it.
It's been on their internal listserv a few times, but there's a let's plug them. Day after tomorrow, on the 18th, is the biggest annual event for Sylvia Rivera Law Project, and so their staff is occupied with organizing their gala. Once the gala happens, I think then they'll
tell us about
be
the
more
gala.
free to.
What is this gala? What is the gala?
Sylvia Rivera Law Project. It's a nonprofit named after Sylvia Rivera, best friend of Marsha P. Johnson, who's the first person in the petition. Sylvia is a famous trans activist. She has a street named after her at the former Randy Wicker Uplift Lighting Shop at Hudson and Christopher Street. She was the best friend of Marsha P. Johnson, trans activist. The organization provides legal aid for trans people that are victimized by violence and discrimination. Right.
I was just listening to that. So tell us. So what you want to do is really change street names in the West Village.
Co-name.
Co-name. Pardon me.
You still have this old name, but then you have the new name like under it or above it. So like 6th Avenue is still 6th Avenue, but between 10th and 11th Streets, I want it to be named Murray Hall Corner, not Murray Hall Way, but Murray Hall Corner after a city council member and Tabney Hall figure from the 1800s, who upon his death in 1901 was discovered to be female, making him the first woman to participate in New York, or the first female-bodied person to participate in New York politics and to vote. He also had a number of wives, and this was very controversial in his lifetime. The wives presumably would have known that he was anatomically female, and the wives kept leaving him and going to Europe, which I'm interpreting as battered wife needed a man to sign off on her passport, so he would marry them, get them travel documents, and they would leave, and then he would marry again, and he was known for being a womanizer.
So you're saying it's not something that they discovered in the conjugal bed?
I think
in the 19th century.
At the very least, it was a clearly lesbian affair. But I think it actually states something about gender freedom and about self-determination of our lifestyles, which is the whole point of this petition. The other person in the other two people are Marsha P. Johnson, who MTF, female presenting, anatomically male person, street worker, street saint, Marsha, Andy Warhol model. She was known for starting the Stonewall riots. She started the civil disobedience at the Stonewall protests.
Okay, very interesting.
The shot glass heard around the world.
The shot glass heard around the world. Great. And so, where do you want to name? What street do you want to co-name?
She was homeless, so it's a little tougher. But because of her prominence in the Stonewall narrative, it's Grove Street between Christopher Street and West 4th Street, which is now it's just Grove Street, but it's exactly opposite Stonewall Way, which is Christopher Street on the other side of that triangle park. So you'll have the Stonewall in the middle of the Stonewall National Monument. You have the Stonewall Bar, you have the Memorial Park, and then you'll have Marsha P. Johnson Way. So
that basically that whole little triangle there at 7th Avenue, we
need like a
it would be named after
General
Sheridan. The only good Indian is a dead Indian, or what is that?
Sheridan Square's around the corner, I think technically, but it's that's what the subway is named for. And so I want to get a big black trans person's name on the street sign there to be part of the New York City landscape. Also Murray Hall around the corner, and then up 8th Avenue a little bit at 8th Avenue and 16th Street. There used to be Statlander's Pharmacy, which was the nexus of ACTUP activism. It was one of the very early AIDS compounding pharmacies where you could get cocktails, like pharmaceuticals for AIDS.
Right, like in that movie, which I haven't seen, but I heard about.
How to Survive a Plague?
That too, and also there was a fictional movie about, maybe that was the one where they had a club, a buyers club.
The Dallas Buyers Club?
Yeah. Didn't they have buyers clubs?
I was acquainted with some of those people, and also the people in the people from I Love You, Philip Morris.
Okay.
Because I was buddies with the first gay rights activist in Texas, or the longest running Ray Hall, and he he was a student of at Indiana University with Karen Horney at the Kinsey Institute. In the 60s, and he claims that he was the one who verified for me, yes, your great aunt Artemis Smith, who kind of got me into like this deep gay activism, is and gender expression battles. He verified that she was there, and she was a favorite of Kinsey.
Being there at the Kinsey Institute.
Yeah, she was. She wrote lesbian pulp fiction novels in the 1970s.
Right. Okay. So,
1950s.
So you're focusing on trans activists, but what you really want to do is commemorate these great folks from gay, lesbian, transgender
history, because I've been involved with very old gay people for a long time, and I figure these are names that are most underappreciated right now.
The Mattachine Society or something like that.
Actually, my great aunt was the first vice president of New York City Mattachine Society.
What's the Mattachine Society? Tell people what it is.
It was the first nationwide gay organization.
Right, back in the day when that was a hard thing to be.
Right. What made them more successful than the other like local secretive groups was that they went out into the open and litigated an entrapment case in L.A. Entrapment is when the cops hit on you in the bathroom and then arrest you.
Well, it happened to that senator, that United States senator
who killed himself
in Minnesota.
With his son. That's in That's in the
That's, you said I have a wide stance.
Yes, I forgot what his name was, but I loved how he spoke.
Right. He was a police officer who he was playing footsie with in the stalls. Right. So, and what you want to do is bring it out of that, so people, the whole purpose of gay activism is that so people can come out of the closets and love whoever they felt like loving in public without any fear of entrapment and having to do it in the, like bathrooms and stuff like that.
But back to 16th Street.
Yeah.
So the story about Statlander's Pharmacy is that and it was like a focal point of AIDS activism in the 90s. it was where Gilbert Baker made the mile-long gay pride flag, which was where he went from a nine stripe flag to a 6-stripe flag, which we kind of recognize now as the gay pride flag, and it became like the iconic symbol. Because
Gilbert, who was on the show, just to remind people, Gilbert's been on the show twice. You can go to our site, youtube.com/letemtalk, LETEMTALK, and then search for Gilbert Baker. We did 2 shows with him, one with Joni Musi as well, my former co-host, and he talked. One of the first show, he talked about his role in designing the first rainbow flag, and then he came back a few months later and showed us that he had designed rainbow flags for every 50 states. Like he had rainbow version flags of all 50 states.
Right. So I had 3 meetings with him.
He just died as we were discussing recently.
While we were working on this project of these. So I'm making the gay pride flag on a keffiyeh, which is an Arab-style scarf. This is
beautiful.
The style I'm wearing. The brand name is Tahrir Scarf, which is also my URL. But the
TahrirScarf.com, spelled TAHRIR
scarf.com.
Right.
No spaces. Tahrir is liberation in Arabic because it's an Arab national symbol, and I thought it's important to make it available because it wasn't available until 2 months ago at all with a rainbow on it.
So it's the first keffiyeh done in a rainbow style? I've never seen one. I've seen them red
I've
or
seen
black.
rainbows on the fringes, but I've never seen like an actual like all the way through like repeated rainbow pattern. And like here's my like fringe.
Yeah, here, hand me one side. No, you take one side.
Yeah.
Take one side, I'll take the other, and we'll show people what it looks like.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It's beautiful.
They're larger than most. They're made in India, and they're larger than most keffiyehs, so you actually can style them more. I'm wearing one as an ascot now. Because it's less flashy, and you know, if you're going to culturally appropriate, go ahead and like go all the way.
Right.
And so Gilbert designed the mile-long gay pride flag, or did the mile-long gay pride flag, which is the New York flag, as opposed to his earlier San Francisco
flag. That was
flag.
The 25th anniversary of
gay pride.
Right. Oh yeah, and a third time Gilbert was on with Charlie Beale to talk about their role as art director and advisor on the movie Milk.
Yes.
And of course, the movie Milk shows a scene where the gay flag is first unveiled during Harvey Milk's speech, his famous speech. Right, I'm Harvey Milk, and I'm here to convert you. Right?
Yeah. So I have like 3 models currently selling of it. There's like ones with like the pink counter stripes. There's one with like a mixture. Whoops.
Oh, pretty. Hey, we can hold it out.
Yeah.
All right. So folks can find out more about this at Tahrir, TAHRIR scarf.com. Right.
Right.
Great. And they can find out more about these beautiful scarves, and we'll show them again later. It's very beautiful.
And I want to get like a nonprofit organization or like a community group involved in marketing them, because the point is to like try to change the dialogue about about gay rights in the rest of the world. Because we have usually like big gay rights news every year around the time of gay pride, and we're like a month out.
It's coming out, right? It's coming soon already, right?
The only big news story we have is Chechnya, and that's like the real story there is how little response there is from the outside world.
Well, what's the story again? Say again?
It's a little bit unconfirmed, but there's about 150 gay men who were trapped by the Chechen government and sent to prison camps in like Holocaust-like settings, and they haven't been seen.
They haven't been seen. They disappeared into Chechnya, right?
Yeah.
I see. So it was like the pink triangles all over, pink star all over again.
Yeah, that's so that's what we're looking at now in Russia, which is like it's been like sort of like the great tragedy of gay rights since like they were the most progressive country after the Russian Revolution, but then since 1926 they've been the most reactionary.
Right, became more nationalistic. The original ideas of the revolution from Lenin in the early days, sort of, under the force of invasion and war and all this, of course, have turned into more of a nationalistic thing where they
It was Stalin. Stalin just didn't. Stalin was hardcore anti-gay. Trotsky
the communist movement was known as specifically anti-gay until recently. I have to say, there's been a change in the last 20 years.
Well, the founder of Mattachine Society, Harry Hay, was the.
I met Harry Hay.
Awesome.
Yeah, he stayed. He was very old. I met him. I must have been 15 years ago, 17 years ago. I was editor-in-chief of High Times,
Uh-huh.
and I went out to interview Dennis Peron, who is still with us, who wrote Proposition 215, which legalized medical marijuana in California. He actually wrote it, and he has a beautiful home on 17th Street in the Castro district of San Francisco, and he had an extra, it's a brownstone, and he has on the first floor an extra apartment that he always would rent to, like you're interested in, an older veteran of the gay lesbian movement who was down on his luck or her luck and needed a place to live.
There was also a basement where
so
more
he had
interesting
Henry,
things
he had
happened.
him there. He must have been about 100. He must have been like 95 or something.
Yeah, it was him and John Burnside at the time living there. Yeah, and
I met him briefly.
And there was this like clique within the radical fairies of the fairies who tea, and they would have like a tea once a week to coordinate all the like elder care issues around Harry and John.
Right. That's it. So and of course, fortunately for Dennis Peron, he was a pot dealer, so he was able to squirrel away some cash and have a nice place to live. But not everybody's that lucky.
Right. Well, I mean, pot dealing is not necessarily such an easy business. We have mutual friends who...
He got shot. Dennis Peron got shot in the leg. And it's a very typical thing. This is getting off the subject, but it's a typical thing if you're a marijuana dealer to think you're being robbed when you're really being arrested. And so there's always a possibility of mistakenly defending yourself.
So the cops shot him?
In this case, well, he thought he was being robbed, and so he picked up a big flower pot that's as big as him and threw it down the stairs at the people coming up the stairs, who he didn't know were undercover police officers raiding the place.
I've heard
and they pulled a gun out and shot him in the leg.
Thank you for expressing the story so eloquently. I've heard about the legal and medical ramifications of this, but I haven't heard the underlying story.
He was in jail during the White Night, which was the famous riots after Dan White was acquitted of murder in the case of the Harvey Milk assassination, and because of the Twinkie defense.
Yes.
And we talked about that. It's hard to believe.
We've converted your entire show into gay history.
It's what I thought. That's what it was about. So let's talk a little more about. So let's talk about trannies and the transgender world. I mean, what is it? What is the proper? What are the different? What is LGBTQT all mean? What do they mean?
Oh, that's why I'm into liberation and not pride. Like your identity politics are your own. I just want to be free to express what I'm feeling at the moment. Like my great aunt I was telling you about, she's post-gender.
Yes.
Like she's anatomically female, has been dressing like a man.
Yeah, let's go stop with that. What is post-gender? Then describe about your aunt. Is that what you said?
Well, she doesn't want to be restricted by like an M or an F, and
male or female, in other words.
So
I'm post-gender. I'm human.
And since gender is socially constructed and doesn't really mean anything, so transgender probably is the same, which is like very shocking to people to say. But she's so she doesn't believe in gender, and she just wants to be over it. She converted me, but then like about 6 months ago or 9 months ago, I converted myself to metagender. Which is like just take the best out of whatever is around.
Oh, right, I see, right, whatever.
But I mean, like we're in like she and I are in a very small minority of people. Like it's only like probably a handful of people that identify as post-gender or metagender.
So you wouldn't say LGBTQT activist. You would say I'm post-gender or metagender.
I'm just for freedom. Like I don't really like. I think straight people need to feel free to enjoy like experimenting and not like I don't want people in boxes. And like just a box, like having more boxes isn't necessarily more helpful.
Right. Well, that's easy in a place like New York or San Francisco, where I've spent most of my life, or
I
Madison,
grew up in
Wisconsin.
Texas. It's fine. Like you can create your own lifestyle in the periphery of the country as well. And actually, you can kind of like because of the sort of live and let live of America. You can, and I think of rural societies in a lot of places. I think you can get away with stuff without having to think about it.
In school, that's where the trouble is. Because that's what somebody I was watching when he was still president. Barack Obama was at one of these town halls, and he was talking with people in like Indiana or a place like that. And this guy said, "Listen," it was interesting because the guy said, "Listen, it's not that I don't like you, and I like a lot what you've done in your policies. That's not the problem. But why are you spending so much time on this minor thing like bathrooms, like which bathroom people can use?" And
that backfired so bad on the Democrats.
Well, but you know what? It's funny. What the president said was, "I understand your concern," and he said, "But I, as president, am getting reports on my desk every day of children being terribly treated in schools across America, to the point where it's so bad that the president of the United States is getting reports of it on his desk."
Yeah,
you know, and it's that bad. So I have to do something about it. I mean, children are being horribly abused and tortured in the schools because of this problem, and somebody has to step in and do something.
Yeah, I co-founded the Gay Straight Alliance at my high school in College Station, Texas, and I got a very generous scholarship from PFLAG, Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and
Did you
Gays.
have a hard time in that school?
Yes,
in Texas?
That's an understatement. Yeah, it was. I was suicidal for a little while. Eventually I realized that it doesn't matter, and I just came out of the closet, and there were consequences, but the sky didn't fall. I handled it just cool enough with my parents that that things were kind of tolerable at home.
Right at home. That's the scariest part, is at home, right? Because that's where you have to sleep every night and be.
Well, unless your parents kick you out because they think you're a freak show. So
that's because
it's always like they'll say, "Oh, it's to defend the other kids. Like we have to kick out the lesbian or the." There was
a time
guy.
when rents were cheap in New York, and you could find a gigantic place. And every time I found and opened up a gigantic place in some corner of New York, it would become a freak show pretty quick, because people would come and say, "I got thrown out of my home. My parents wouldn't let me be there because I'm a freak," and I would say, "Well, there's another spot on the floor over there."
What portion of those people were on the GLBT spectrum?
Always. It was almost always involved with that, or drugs, that was interacted, they were, and not heavy drugs. I mean, they were smoking pot, or they were gay, or they had parents who were ridiculously strict and conservative, or they were runaways, maybe a little autistic, and nobody understood them, and they took a run for it,
So you were adopting all these
well, for a little bit. I mean,
urchins.
I had a huge pot of Cafe Bustelo Black on the stove, so anybody could, and the floor had plenty of places to create. It was a loft. And the local people liked us because there was no heavy drugs, and it was a heavy drug area. So we had
where was this?
Right on 3rd D, 3rd Street and Avenue D. And
but in those days, if you went past Avenue C, you were looking to get mugged, right?
No, well, not if they knew us. They loved us in the neighborhood. We were well loved, liked. Yeah, especially when we put a huge wild style banner, like we were fighting our landlord, and we went really public with it and everything, and the neighborhood loved us a lot. They knew the deal was simple. You don't get involved in the heroin cocaine business. Stick to marijuana and beer, right? And have young people coming by who are straight, who are clean and not messing around. And the local people they were appreciative of that.
Fantastic.
Yes, never had a problem.
Clean living.
Yeah, clean living. It helped. Clean living in the middle of a drug zone helped.
Right.
It really did. And they saw us as like a stabilizing influence. Even the dealers, because what do they want? Some crazy people turning a shooting gallery right there where they're selling the stuff. The last thing they wanted. I learned. I learned a lot of reality in New York, in that area. But anyway, let's go. That's all fascinating. I mean, my story, but I love your story. So again, let's return. So where is this petition available? Where can people find this petition?
Well, we have the tiny URL, I think, posted on the, is it down here? But on the screen.
Right.
But it's change.org.
So if we can post the tiny URL.
It only has 227 last time I checked, so I hope that we get double that amount. But
what's the name of the site so they can find it in case they search it?
It's change.org, and if you
change.org.
If you go to change.org or just Google search change.org, Marsha, Murray, or Gilbert, or all of those three, it'll come up. And
Gilbert Baker.
Yeah.
Who are the three?
Gilbert Baker, Murray Hall, Marsha P. Johnson, in reverse order. And there's the cover shot is me in nun drag, if you know what the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, holding up a giant Marsha sign.
Yes, we had the sisters on the show.
Yeah, in the Gay Pride Parade last year. So I photobombed Cynthia Nixon, the mayor, and Al Sharpton in this thing.
Right, right. And so the whole purpose of this is to convince the city council to make these co-names.
Well, every year for the last 6 years, we've right before Gay Pride, we have like big political news about gays. Like usually it's good. Like last year was Orlando, which was sad, and which is why I did the nun drag. But before that, it was gay marriage, or like state level gay marriage, or IRS gay marriage, or like there's always, like, the last 6 years consistently, the day or week leading into Gay Pride, there's big news. This year, all we've got is Chechnya, and the big story about Chechnya is how little response there is outside of Chechnya, and that's kind of a bummer. And like, considering that we didn't respond to Pussy Riot, we didn't respond to the lack of visas for gay Russians. Like, this is like not necessarily a positive story. But the mayor, who seems to be running for re-election against Donald Trump for mayor of New York, is can make a big statement at no expense for a milestone in trans visibility and queer visibility.
Right.
Even
within the gay community, there seems to be some, at least the feminist community, I should say, some controversy over trans rights. That somehow, for example, this bathroom issue is offensive to some feminists who say that that's their space, the bathroom. What have you heard that, and do you have any position on that?
I like urinals, stand-up urinals, and that's and those are endangered by mixed gender bathrooms, because I think when the remodeling happens to like make transgender people comfortable in every bathroom, the victim is the urinal. So that's why I'm hesitant to back President Obama on the bathroom issue. But I mean, I don't know what the feminist position is, or anyone else's.
There is who's a feminist, who isn't. A lot of people say they're feminists who aren't, and a lot of don't say they are, and they are. So, and there's also being a revolutionary, which says that it's not really about identity politics, really, but like a broader desire for some change in the world, make it a better world. That's how I see myself, as more of a revolutionary that does not bow to one or another of the identities. We seem to agree on that, right? Yeah, and there's a lot of identity politics being pushed out there, but it's been more, in my opinion, it played a role 40 years ago after the Vietnam War movement was over.
Where was the role of identity politics there? Because I hear the criticism constantly of how about how it debilitated the left.
Well, at first it was good. It kept the left going, but then in recent years, it cuts off debate and discussion about a lot of important issues. Because if, let's say, you're a straight white male and you have something interesting to say about AIDS or gay rights or something like that, all of a sudden we're not supposed to listen to you.
Right. Or it's like with ACTUP, where you need to get an explicitly trans organization.
Right.
Just support
and somebody who just
Johnson
happens to
Petition
be the
move.
identity, could totally screw things up and be wrong, right? So how can you criticize an open discussion and debate?
Right. Or you can be like my great aunt, who's been cross-dressing as a man since the 1930s in fascist Rome.
Johnathan Morpurgo, thanks for joining us.
Oh.
You did a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Very interesting conversation, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. Thank you.